Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks very much for watching. First of all, to all you new subscribers, really appreciate it. Thanks so much for pressing that button there and subscribing to the channel, really appreciate that. So, last week, good week, made some good progress. We got some long-term projects which we were waiting on parts, etc. They've all turned up, so we can now crack on with that. Got a load of little fiddly jobs out the way. Yeah, made some really good progress. Until Friday, probably 2 hours into the morning, thought we were making really good progress, and we got a bit of an issue with the Cosworth. So this one here, the one that's had the 3 or 4 builds so far due to a few technical issues in mapping, etc. Now, for you new subscribers, if you haven't watched the previous video we've done on this engine, this one here has had some, as I say, this is the 4th time it's actually been built. We've had it apart 2 or 3 times before. There was detonation on 2 of the times. The last time we took it to bits, there was very slight detonation, but also there was contamination in the oil, fuel contamination. The bores had gone a crazy shape. The crank bearings, bearing in mind this thing's done probably 2 track days. If I can just find an old shell bearing, you know, this is probably one of the better ones, but not good. Had the thing back, got it to bits. Last time round, we've done a couple of modifications on the block. As I said to you before, we've done away with the original spray bar, which, if you have a look on this engine, which is another Cosworth engine, on that spray bar here, there is a bit of a Heath Robinson looking sort of brazed on contraption, which is actually a factory spray bar. It goes into the cap of the oil pump here, and obviously just nicks some of the oil and pressure to squirt oil underneath the piston crowns. So on this block here, we've gone for a slightly more modern version of that. We've done away with that spray bar. We've gone with a later Escort Cosworth small turbo spray bar, which is basically the same oil pickup, just plain without that spray bar there. The oil pump is a high flow pump without that lid on it. It's basically just a blank lid, so pretty much looks like a Pinto setup really. So if I have a look under the base of this troublesome block, you see down there, I've machined through the block down into the main oil gallery of the block there and put in some modern spray jets. These are actually BMW spray jets, so we can move those and have them spraying directly from the main oil gallery underneath the pistons wherever we want. We've done the long stud conversion where if I just show you this, where we, instead of the original head bolts, like on the end ones here, where it bolts directly onto the face, we machine that out, we drill that out, and then machine into the bottom of the block, down here somewhere, the base of the water gallery in the bottom of the block there, and these are called the long stud conversion. So we've done that, put those in. We've done away with the original ones that are in here, which were they're a bit of an old design. They come with, where it sits in the block there, there is like a fixed point, but the trouble is with that, you can't go too deep with them. These are just almost a straight stud with a sort of rubber O-ring so that you can put what you want. The idea of that is on this block, I think it's on the exhaust side, you've got 4 and 2. In the base of the block, unfortunately you can't see it. Well, yeah, you can see it here through you may be able to see through this gallery. There's a lug there where you put the thread. See that lug? Well, with the original studs, you can't go too deep and you run the risk of it breaking the top of the lug off. With these studs, you can actually go another 5, sometimes 10 mil deeper, especially on those 2. So that's why we've changed to these studs as opposed to the original. These are from a company called Julian Godfrey Engineering. May well have heard of them. Very big in the rallycross scene. Been been dealing with Cosworth for years. Great bunch of guys they are. So we've got these are their own studs. So we've put those in there. Obviously the spray jet's done that. The last time we built this engine, I put in the ductile iron steel top hat liners. That enables two things. One, it's a very tough liner. Also, you can take a worn block or a board block back to a standard size. So they're the two advantages of that. So I did that the last time round. So each time this engine has been built, as annoying as it is for ourselves and obviously the customer, we've tried to save him some money. This time round, we're supporting him on the labour there. All he's got to do is stick a bigger sticker on his car with our name on it, but that's fine. So I'm making sure everything's absolutely hunky-dory. I've checked, double-checked and triple-checked every dimension on this thing. Fortunately, his crank was ground originally, but this time round, no issues with the crank whatsoever, measures perfectly. So that's good to go, just give it a polish. Obviously, it's been balanced originally anyway, so we haven't really got to do, you know, all that. The pistons, now originally on this block, it did unfortunately, when he bought this 200 block, it did actually have the wire rings in the top. So round the top here, what they used to do in the olden days, before they had sort of steel gaskets, when they had just a fibre gasket, it was a sort of thing that they used to do in the touring cars and that, where they put a wire ring in, probably a sort of a millimetre deep into the block, and that also protrudes a sort of millimetre, and the idea is where the fire rings of the gasket sits on the block, it beds into the wire ring, but we do away with that. So the first thing we did when we bought this block, unfortunately it had it, so we took the wire rings out, we had to deck the block, so we've took just over a millimetre off the surface of this block. Problem is with that, it doesn't really matter on the, you know, for the head studs, but it does matter for the pistons. Obviously, the last time round, we use a particular style of piston, which we use in all our, well, most of our engines, our performance engines, no issues whatsoever. But just to eliminate any possible issues, or just to try something else, we've gone with the original Mahler Cosworth piston. So the problem with decking the block originally is obviously now the pistons are going to sit well over a millimetre proud. What we've had to do there is I've had to, if you have a look here, and I will show you in this video the processes of me doing this. These pistons originally come with no valve pockets, which is borderline okay for a completely standard motor, but once you have to start decking blocks, refacing heads, as all the heads have been faced to death really, and obviously definitely when you start running bigger cams, you've got to put pockets in. So the pistons we were using before, most aftermarket forged pistons come with the pockets in them, but I do my own pockets depending on what valves we're using and what cams we're using. I do my own valves and my valve depth. I also turn the first thing I do is turn the outside of the piston down to get the correct piston protrusion from the block. Now the whole idea of me having a bit of protrusion is for the squish. So I never run them dead flat. I always run these in the Cosworths about 12 to 15 thou protrusion. So I do that first. The crown thickness of these pistons is pretty good, to be honest with you. So what I normally do is I replicate the center bowl, and I just turn it out until, bearing in mind, I don't have to turn it out as it was originally to get the right compression ratio, because we're putting the pockets in. So I take that into consideration, and then I just modify the piston as necessary to get the right compression ratio. Quite a lot of work's gone into this block now, so we've checked, double checked, really gone to town on it, as we do normally, to be honest. But you know, we've become really paranoid over this engine, although it wasn't necessarily our fault. I just want this thing to be all right for the guy. You know, he's not only a good customer, but he's a good friend of ours now, and this thing's got to be 100% right. Now, the title of this video, and the reason for that, is because This was all going very smoothly, and we actually got this thing almost built last week. I mean, this thing would have been ready to go out Friday. We got it to the state where the head was just about to go on, turn the crank over, and there was a really weird noise. It almost sounded, on TDC, it sounded like a little pop, like no shells in the big end. Now, I don't know whether, you know, at the end of the day, we're all human. I don't know whether it was because we would become ultra sensitive to this bloody engine. But for some reason, we've just got paranoia. I mean, paranoia is a nightmare in this game. There's been many a times before where we've put an engine together, almost completely finished it, and just you get something in your head where you think, did I torque up those big ends? And it's sump off and oil pump off and check all the big ends. It's a nightmare. John's terrible for it. And I seem to have inherited that. But so we've got paranoid and we've stripped the thing right down. We spent all Friday, to be honest with you, I've took it completely to bits. I've measured all the crank bearing thicknesses. I've measured the conrod housing size. I've measured the main housing size. I've measured, you know, bear in mind, I've done all this originally. So this has all been done, but I just had to do it for peace of mind. I've measured the bores again. I've measured the pistons, top and bottom. I've measured the ring thicknesses. I've measured the small end. I've measured the pin in the piston. You name it, I've double checked it. In the end, now this is the first time I think I've had this where on these pistons the rings are not tight in the gaps not tight in the gaps of the piston at all, but they're fairly snug. And I think what was happening is, obviously, I mean, for you guys that don't know anything about engines, a piston is not parallel each side. It's, you know, it's sort of tapered like this. The rings take up the top of the gap, and the piston only touches in the bore on the bottom of the skirt, really, or sort of 10 mil up on the skirt. So that's the design of a piston. And I think what was happening, I don't know whether you can see this, but no, I can't really see it because the rings are still pretty snug. But where that piston, you see that piston moves? It moves side to side. Well, I think because the rings were pretty snug in there, it was holding the piston over maybe to one side more than the other. And as it come up on TDC, you just get a bit of rock on the top, and it was just dong, 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 dong. I mean, that's exaggerated, but it just went silent. And we both suffered with paranoia on it, and we've stripped the bloody thing down, spent all day checking it. I've managed to sort of relieve the rings in the grooves of the piston, put it all back together. Now we turn it over. Obviously, I haven't got the sump on yet, but got the big ends and the mains and that all torqued up, and jobs are good and all sounds sweet as a nut. So yeah, very annoying, but in a way, I'm glad I did it because of what it is, because of the situation with this. I am sort of glad we did it. And now we know, you know, I did ring the customer up Friday afternoon. He was very grateful for it, explain the situation. You know, I don't want to sound like an idiot, and I'm not, I don't know what I'm doing, but, you know, you guys must know what it's like in whatever you do. You know, you just get a bit paranoid, and this thing had to be stripped down and checked. And now I'm happy that everything on it is perfect. That's all you can do, I suppose. So most of what we do now is the performance. We get, you know, obviously get a lot of classic stuff. Let's say we got James's engine there from Chop's Garage, top bloke. That's for his MGB. I'm going to try and talk him into supercharging that. Needs to be done, I think, with definitely what he's doing on the car. I mean, you guys might have seen it, but that's going to be a bit of a weapon, that thing. With all this performance stuff we're doing, it's getting more and more like it. It's great work, love it to bits, but you do have to be that little bit more anal with it, I'd say. Anyway, guys, that was the palaver with this engine. Tomorrow or Tuesday, we're going to hope to get this thing fully dressed, get the head on, and let the customer have it back and see how we go from there. But anyway, till the next time, guys, thanks ever so much for watching. Remember to press the subscribe button and leave your comments below. Cheers, guys.